Yeah, once we start, we will just let a couple people pop in and stuff like that and do the little
Yeah.
countdown. Once I see a couple people coming in, that's when I'm gonna just start talking. Other than that, we can just sit here and just chill. And something you want to do, you can just do it and hit mute. But yeah, we live
Try
right
to
now
see
on
it. I'm
YouTube.
trying to see if I could switch.
Oh, you about to try to switch devices? All right, what's good? What's good? What's good? Salute. I see we got a couple people popped in. Salute my boy Scotty Saturn, Drastic in the building. What's going on? Major salute to y'all. You definitely know what time it is. Got a different little setup today. Going live. My boy Everyday Struggle was good. Salute to you. We're definitely going live. Let's let some people pop in. Y'all know the routine. You rather me use this one?
Oh no, I mean what I was trying to do was go on YouTube so that I could see what was going on there, but it'll allow it. I think when you click out of this, it just hits you out of the whole thing.
Oh yeah. You probably have to look at it on maybe on your computer screen if you're using the phone.
Yeah, yeah, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Hold on, I'm gonna delete this other one real quick. Hold on.
yeah.
Oh, you already did it, yeah. But yeah, it's just the dual screen.
Okay.
Yeah, so like because I was even noticing when you share screen on here, if you got two screens, you can look at the other one and actually see what it is you sharing the right way. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's all it is. Decent little
yeah.
setup. But
It's a matter of getting used to it.
oh yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, that's all it is. It's really
Is
pretty
it?
pretty easy to
Let me
use though.
turn my yeah. Let me turn my computer on so I can see what's going on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
See the
yeah, yeah.
comments and stuff.
Yeah, turn it on. Cause on mine I can see the comments and talk at the same time. So yeah,
Oh,
that'd be good if you got your laptop on at a dual screen shit.
oh, there you go.
Yeah, plus like well, I don't know if the notifications went out or not. Maybe some of them did, maybe they didn't, but we did put out a
Yep.
post yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's about 9:30, 6:30 on the West Coast. So we just giving people a little bit of time. I know they
Yeah.
getting done with their work day and kind of winding down and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's all good, man. I already know you handling business on it, so that's all it's all good. Yeah, appreciate that you're working on it anyway. We appreciate you working on it anyway, man. But yeah, this setup would be pretty good though. Let me see, it's at 4 minutes. Yeah, I'll probably start at maybe about give it another 3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes.
You already going live now?
Yeah. It's going live now on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. It look like you can set it up to go live in multiple destinations, like Facebook and YouTube at the same time.
Oh,
But
okay.
mm-hmm. But yeah, I just got it on the YouTube now. Um, Eventually, what we're gonna do too is create a Facebook page that'll be kind of like a book club, book review page to start doing some stuff over there as well. So folks can get their YouTube, get their Facebook page going and start having multiple social media events or whatever. Yeah, but yeah, we're gonna probably go live from you know. Shit, I noticed these live streams be going fast. They can get to an hour and you don't even really realize it once you get to rolling. Especially when I start showing these images and stuff, because That'd be pretty good. Yeah, we'll give it to about 7 minutes and we'll start. But yeah, really right now I'm kind of gonna just start with you because did want to get your insight on some stuff. So really like the plan is that, you know, create some awareness so people can learn about, the book is available and stuff. Salute to the brother in the comment section. I see you out there. Yeah, we just getting started, just an open discussion on some stuff. But yeah, since it's more of a story, it's the type of thing that you don't want to rob the reader of that experience by reading it on camera or talking about it too much. But the themes and the subjects, the concepts, and some of the ideas and the phenomena that the people that'll play out in the book, these videos are help supplement that. But the first one really like that I wanted to talk about is the idea of settler colonialism, and mainly like these ruling international families, like for example, these conflicts going on in the Middle East, over oil and resources and stuff like that. But really behind the scenes, it's a lot of families. And throughout Earth history, what these people like doing is really extracting all the energy from human beings. And it was this something I wanted to put on the screen just to show. They want to extract the energy of human beings so people can work towards, their desires and whatever reality it is that they want to create. So when people think about slavery and stuff like that, instead of looking at it emotional, really looking at it from, the idea of this energy vampire, um, like people caught up in this work system, even, stuff like that. But let me pull this image up. People caught up in this work system. Yeah, exactly. So kind of what, can you hear me?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, yeah. Sound like I heard an echo.
Yeah, it's the computer. I was turning the volume down.
No, yeah. Let me see real quick. Did that image show up for you clear on the screen?
Yeah, on my phone, but it's kind of delayed on my computer though.
Oh yeah, but it showed up. But basically though, like the first concept and idea I want us to think about is, the idea of international capital LLC. Like you'll read about in the 1600s at least, companies like the Dutch West Indies Company, where you had countries from Europe come over, and they had different investors and financiers in these companies that wanted to extract resources out of the Americas, and then they would send them back to Europe. They would manufacture those raw materials or raw resources and then sell them to other places in Europe or the Middle East, Asia. But that whole concept of these companies really and these corporations, like what's your idea of that? Like that basically how these people create these companies really just to extract wealth from the people via their energy, and having them focus and concentrate on just survival, really.
Yeah, well, I mean that's pretty much like what they what the guy Finkelstein said in that video. I mean, that's essentially what allows them to have that power. I mean, in my opinion, honestly, that's the only reason why that form of religion even matters to them. Because I mean, no like true form of religion really matters to anybody that's of some sort of elite status, honestly, because the
Right,
wealth really allows them to justify the religion. I mean, obviously, if you have wealth, you want to spread your identity and and your norms and your culture, no matter where it is in the world, because your wealth is what's going to allow anything that you're doing to spread. So that religion, I believe, is just all, I mean, because I feel like, rather it's just them believing in, some sort of higher being, or or them believing that it's just literally some materialistic, buy all that they believe that they could just create some deity out of and then worship that, no matter what it is. I think that just overall, the mere fact that they have extracted these resources, however they got in position to do this, and it's gotten them this far, it's allowed them to justify their form of religion, and that form really dominates everything, for the mere fact that their wealth has allowed them to kind of distribute who they are all over the world. So that to me has like allowed what they do to really even matter.
right,
So them being able to extract what they can out of people, I mean, that's a part of what allows their wealth to generate.
right, right.
So
So in a minute, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull that Finkelstein video up so we can just go over a little bit. But
yeah.
before I do that, I do want you to just introduce yourself to the viewership. Just let the people know who you are. Give them a brief background of who you are.
All right. Yeah. I mean, for anybody that isn't aware who I am, this is me, Chase Northley, aka Houdini Crosswire. I've been on YouTube probably for about maybe 16 years. My channel started out as a gaming channel essentially because I always have had a love for gaming, but mainly I always had a love for making productions and video content essentially. And just mixing the two allowed YouTube to kind of, have me to be able to express that form of creativity. So that's essentially what Scorpio and Tibet Universe was generated from. Of course, ideas that I had ever since I was young, and then being able to create them in video content. But above that, I spun off into other forms, where essentially, you could just think of my channel, and everything I'm doing is like going to NBC. Like, you're gonna get a little bit of entertainment, then you're gonna get information, and you're gonna get substance of like you know things that can help kind of enrich your life. So I have segment where I have the Sell Into Your Independence on my channel, where I talk about how I started my cleaning business, which I've been doing for the last 8 years now, and other forms of various businesses I've done that I haven't really been able to show on camera as much, because of things that I legally do I can't show, but I will be showing in the future. But just essentially um showing content where, again, some of it is where you could be entertaining, you could laugh, and have a good time. Other content, again, to sell into your independence, you being informed, and you've been educated on different ways, again, like how, like I just said, in this world, I mean, we already are being gripped, and our energy, and everything that we're trying to strive for is being gripped by higher elite people that really are worshiping the devil, honestly, if you really want to break it down. And my channel is really strive to try to create content to help navigate away from like this idea of thinking we have to just be enslaved under this thing, and this is the rest of your life, and you're not going to be able to generate any type of resources for yourself. My channel is essentially videos. Eventually it'll be like short form documentaries, it'll be short movies that you guys will be able to see free, and little bit of money that you have to pay for behind the scenes. But nevertheless, it'll just be more content that'll be centered around just showing people basically how to get out of this whole thing, and you being entertained by it as well. So if you ever want to just check any of that stuff out, I say go on over to Scorpio and Tibet Universe, and it's 16 years worth of content on there you can see.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, that's most definitely. So what we'll do is just even get a link to the page and even leave that in the comment section as well. But before we go to our clip, though, as the brother was just going into, what we're talking about right now are ruling international families that practice colonialism. So right now we dealing with the 250-year anniversary of America, or really more so the United States. And we know that this country was founded based on the 13 colonies. European settlers came here. They saw it was a land that was plush and flowing with milk and honey, allegedly. And they wanted to set up shop here. They saw it was a lot of natural resources. They saw it was people here who had a laid back, luxurious way of life. and they had a lot of plans for these people. They wanted to use them and extract their labor, extract their resources. So this image that you have on the screen right here is basically the magnetic field that's produced by the heart. So most of us, when we think about the human heart, we just think about an organ or a vessel that pumps blood, but it's much deeper than that. Right now, I want us to think about more so the spiritual heart, the heart behind the heart, which is really the seat of your soul or your spirit or your energy essence. All right. So a lot of attention and focus is put on the human brain when it comes to intellect, concentration, consciousness, awareness, and living. But a lot of that also should be applied to the spiritual heart or the higher heart. So these ruling international families, they have desired, yeah, as I said, realities that they want to create. And the wealth really is the human energy. All right. So we think about money, gold, precious gems, and other valuable items. And unfortunately, people have been deceived into thinking that these items are more valuable than the actual human energy or the human essence, the human energy field, all right, which is emitting off of your soul. So think about your conscious power, or what they say spirit. There's a lot of different terms for it, but we just basically talking about the human biosphere. um and this is just a simple image that we have on the screen right here. It's not something that you can physically see. It's really electromagnetic. But these ruling international families, a lot of them, as the brother alluded to, they are into certain occultic practices, occult research, and they understand the power of the human being and the human energy, and how if they can get you to pay attention and concentrate and focus on something that they deem important, then all your energy basically will be harvested and used to bring to life something that it is that they want. So think about all these tall skyscrapers that you all see downtown in whatever major city you live in, or all these major corporations on all these commercials. Just think about all the people that are thinking and concentrating on the work and the labor and the energy that they're providing to it, and that's why they get so big. And the more they get, the lazier these ruling international families get. So another term for, I guess you could say, resources, the human resources, is also capital. All right. So when you think about money or currency, they'll use the term capital, but capital basically is anything that has value. All right. Anything that has value. And in the modern world, the capital that we use is the financial instrument called money, which pretty soon to be digital. But they create these limited liability companies, or LLCs, to extract resources and capital and then sell it. All right. And the more people they can get to work for them, the better. And they also create secret societies or secret organizations, secret alliances to consolidate, and also to create monopolies. So, for example, if you ever wondered, why is it a McDonald's, a Burger King, a Hardee's, or Carl Jr.'s, whatever you want to call it. But in a lot of these cities, you'll see these different fast food burger restaurants, and they'll all be on the same block or all in the same corner. And you would think to yourself, well, why not? Why wouldn't Burger King go several miles down the street so they could get the money in that area? Instead, they all huddle up in the same areas, because really behind closed doors, there's a monopoly. They've already agreed to share the profits. And they know that the people that don't eat McDonald's, you may go over to Burger King, but behind closed doors, they dealing with the same, retailers, the same manufacturers, the same producers. So, um, so that's what I meant by they consolidate, or they centralize themselves, because they have secret alliances in these secret societies or groups. So we think that, oh, that's a CEO of Burger King, or oh, that's a CEO for McDonald's, but behind closed doors, they're really dealing with each other. So what we want to do right now, is I want to play a video that came out. Well, I know I saw it for the first time about 10 years ago. And we more so want to deal with the psychology of the ruling international family and how they see the average person. All right. So we're going to do a little bit of screen sharing right now. We're going to remove this off the screen. So give me some time to get my stuff right. We'll share screen. Window. All right, you can see me sharing my screen.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's what I'm gonna put his name. So what we're gonna do in this is basically we're gonna, play some of this interview and then we're gonna pause it. And I'm gonna just ask the brother Crosswire, for some of his perspective on the things he gonna hear. He gonna just drop some jewels and we're gonna move forward.
Is the audio playing?
Can you hear the audio?
No, I can't hear it.
Let me see. Let me go back. Let me ask the people in the audio. I mean,
Y'all hear the audio?
yeah. If somebody in the comment section, let me know if y'all heard the audio and you could see me playing the video.
It might be like a little slight 10-second delay on you going live on here.
Okay.
Like whenever they comment and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm noticing it even on my monitor, like it's not showing, everything in real time like that. But sometimes it take YouTube a while. Like when you go live, more and more times, like sometimes it just end up, just getting right. But it's like I noticed with the first few times that should be slow.
Okay. But when I pulled up the interview, were you able to see it and hear it?
Yeah, I saw it, but I couldn't hear anything when you pressed play.
Hmm.
But I hear your audio though through the microphone. It's just not the display audio on the device.
Right.
So it may be something you have to adjust with the display option on StreamYard. I'm not sure exactly where that is, but maybe wherever it captures like your whatever is on the screen, you got to like adjust the audio setting for that.
Okay.
Because it's essentially captured, it's a screen recording essentially. Because
Right.
you looking from everything on your phone, right?
No. I'm on the laptop.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, it should be kind of the same like OBS then. So it should have like an option where you could adjust the audio for whatever window capture device you whatever window capture option it has.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'll just have to play around with it. Maybe
Yeah,
after we do this one, but I guess
yeah,
basically what we can do is because I know you have seen that video, just kind of
yeah.
give your comment on basically the mentality that these ruling international families have, and how do they see the average person out here?
I mean, to be honest, like the average person to them just seems like cattle, just like how you explained somewhat earlier, like just as some form of just capital, as you explained, like, capital could be, labor or, some form of a scapegoat or, or some form of collateral, I mean, a human being could be collateral for another country, you know what I mean? Like amongst these ruling elites, because it's like they have favors amongst each other. So I think that they just honestly, it's just a game of chess, and they use, the human subject honestly is just collateral labor, capital, um you know, like I said, a scapegoat. I mean, whatever they want to do, honestly, and then whatever little sick game they continue to play.
Right. So I'm gonna right now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull up a definition of something real quick. Since the
The
video
guy,
we gotta
the guy
go ahead.
Fickles. Yeah, I was just saying the guy Finkelstein. Just his presence. I mean, of course, y'all could just go and look at the video on your own since it's a little technical difficulty, but you could just hear in his voice, how calm he is, just how just really casual he is with the way he answers. Like it's like I said, it's just like every day. It's like I guess since they feel like they're the chosen one, and that's their mission to reach to the highest level and rule over all everybody else. And one day it's going to be this great world where it's nothing but Jews and no goy is going to exist. Then this is their way. That's their way of like doing it. And like that's literally what we living in this society until shit either the dollar changes or or something. you know
Right.
but that's what the guy's mission statement is really.
Right. So basically, it sounds like you describing this definition. Settler colonialism is typically ongoing system where foreign settlers occupy land, displace indigenous populations, and establish a new permanent society. It is defined by the goal of replacing original inhabitants, often through genocidal, assimilationist policies, and the elimination of the native to establish local control. So after I read that definition, what I want to do next is I'm just gonna bring up an image of who the original population was here in the Americas, and just kind of get the brother Crosswise opinion on, you know, like you said, like these people try to create, I guess, a new world order to where they reach to the highest level. So
Mm.
kind of go into that mind control of like who the original American Indian is, and
Right.
why do you think that people were taught, about the African slave trade and stuff like that?
Well, because let's go back to what you said. Like, they know that also that knowledge, having the knowledge of a lot of this stuff is very wealthy as well. And and they knew that we both come from the same God as they believe. And they know that basically that whole narrative, if it could be believed, then obviously then their mission can be completed, and a lot of their goals or what they want to achieve, because they know that obviously it's no way that it was millions of people that came from this one little continent, right? Even if it was something that had been conjoined with other continents in a more Pangean state of time. But it's no way all these people, millions of people, just came from this one continent to come over here. And then, this was all new, essentially. And then that, for what, 1,500 years prior to that, it was no history here, no civilization. Like that just wasn't true. I mean, we all know that when they got here, obviously, they were told by, people that were already over there that were in ruling powers that weren't of their color, and they probably pretty much came over here, under their rulership, to do whatever servitude they came over here for. But you know, that narrative obviously just had to be created to keep going. What we know probably since like what I would say like when did they create the Horace Mann create the education system? Well, that was in the 1870s.
Yeah, like after Civil War, during that whole
Yeah,
Reconstruction era.
right. So we would say up to then, but prior to that, there was no such thing as like a world documented history. You know,
So
every country.
let me ask you this
Oh,
question. Can you see on the images on the screen right now?
yeah,
So what we talking or what we showing right now is basically if you go on Google and you type in the terminology Black or more American Indian, these various expensive statues that were put in cigar shops, and a lot of people just purchase them and put them in their home, but they'll pop up. And of course, they're dressed different ways, but you can pinpoint the ones that are American based on, of course, the headdress and certain attire that they wear. So, just for example, we have one right here. Yeah, I'll pull this one up.
What century would that be from?
So these would have been all maybe, let's say, like the 15, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, most of these were carved and created more in like the 1800s. But they were
Oh,
depicting the
okay.
people, yeah, that were from the land and how they looked, how they dressed, etc. But clearly when you look at this person on the screen in front of us, he has a headdress that reflects the American Indian headdress. So we know he's not African based on his headdress and his cultural attire, how he's choosing to present himself. Also, the tobacco skirt that he has, or kilt, or whatever you may want to call it, on his lower garment. But we'll see that that's made out of the tobacco here on the land. Um, and if we could look at this guy's face, you can see his ethnic phenotype and this the features of his face. He looks like what we would call a so-called black man. So, I'm just gonna ask you real quick, Houdini, did you ever see images like this when you were in school?
Believe it or not, I did in some of my textbooks, but it was so subliminal, that of course you're not like told that who these people actually are. But I got
Right,
several textbooks where they look just like that, where they talked about Georgia natives, Alabama natives, South Carolina, like all the same southeast regional states
right,
had this same look, you know.
right.
But yeah, I got textbooks where these people look just like this, so I can actually say that it was shown, but it wasn't told, you know.
Ah, interesting.
So it all goes back to the narrative of what you said. Like you're only gonna believe, what story you're told, but what you see, that could be one thing. I mean, again, I could be looking outside the window right now and could see, a UFO or Bigfoot or something, but only that image would be clear to me. But again, it would have to be a narrative that everybody believes in order for the story to be portrayed a certain way. So
Right.
that's why I think that that the history has kind of been like misunderstood.
So let me ask you this, because you just hit on a good point when you talked about that American Indian image and phenotype and how it's always associated with the Southeast.
Yeah.
Based on you growing up in this country, you know, what do you think it is about the Southeast? Why does that phenotype and look predominantly in the Southeast? Do you think that this used to be maybe an American Indian kingdom or something like that? Like, why is it centralized in the South, you think?
I think because in this area, it always was like it was a easily accessible area for other areas, throughout the globe. And I think that most of what the natural resources that always have existed to where again going back to the commodity thing and understanding capital, I think a lot of the natural resources that you could establish were in this region. I mean, of course, you had gold and stuff out west, and and even copper and stuff like that in other areas. But I think in this region that it's location, and I think that I honestly feel like too, this just this part of the world, if you just sector off like, this and where going down to Florida and then wherever that little part of where they say the Bermuda Triangle. I mean, all this little part of the southeast region of the United States is kind of all centralized, like right there. I don't know why, but I feel like this might be like the oldest part of the earth, you know?
Mm,
So I don't know.
that's interesting. So, kind of go a little bit, up into the human energy and it being extracted by these elite. You were kind of going in on that. What kind of people do you think end up always just never, I guess, becoming aware of that matrix?
And I see, just to believe it or not, I think that, as time go on, and the information spreads, like, we got the internet and stuff now, maybe back in the 50s and stuff, when it was the, your apple pie and, white picket fence and, era, when things were kind of new at that time for where, they were bringing in this new idea of modern living. People
they were still learned at the time, but like maybe it just was easily ignored because the way that life had just changed. Like you weren't living on a farm anymore. You weren't living this like agriculturalized based life. It became more industrialized, like you said. So I don't know if it was more ignored over time because it's not like people don't know. Like everybody knows something out here just ain't right. But I just think a lot of the times, just because of the way that that things are just like portrayed so glamorous, and then you kind of like are given certain things to make you think that things aren't as bad, that it just makes it not really like as bad to certain people, and they just kind of go along with what this thing is. And when so
Right.
many more people do it all at once, I guess it becomes normalized.
Right. So let me ask you this question. Can you see the image of all these clan people on the screen?
um Man, I ain't gonna lie, it's not showing up.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, damn, my bad. I ain't even share the screen yet. Hold on.
Yeah, yeah, I see it.
All right, yeah. So basically, when people look at or hear about the Ku Klux Klan, once again, it's this emotional sensationalism of all these scared people with white robes instead of really analytically and processing who these people are. So when you think about the indigenous American people, all those folks that we just showed, who looked like they had old jewelry, royalty here in the southeast of America, obviously it was some kind of empire and there was resources down here. People were traveling through, like you said, the Gulf of Mexico, coming through the port of Louisiana, New Orleans and stuff like that. So they've had big motion going on here. And when these foreigners came to the land, they saw that they wanted to take it for themselves. So going to how the Ku Klux Klan could have been used really just to scare the people off the land using this form of domestic terrorism, only to steal the resources and but just using the fear of that whole racism thing and also too, did that work on you when you were growing up?
Well, just to kind of answer your first question with that, like, yeah, I mean, essentially that's what it was created from. Again, like going back to what you were saying, none of this stuff existed before 1865. So it just kind of makes you wonder why. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the country was what barely 100, wasn't even 100 years old at this point. So it didn't even have its first centennial. So obviously it had to be something new that created when it's this whole nation now. When it's like every before that, it was just really different states that were really divided. I mean, it really wasn't even like it was the northern states had its own thing, and every Pennsylvania agreed with New York and Delaware and Ohio, and then down south Georgia agreed with Tennessee. Like it never really was like that. It was certain agreements, but every state and every like region of those states kind of really had its own like politics, honestly. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously with that being with so much of that going on, it all had to be centralized into something. So when the war happened, and then it had to be again a narrative, and it had to be this one nation idea, this unified thing, because it wasn't just going on here in America, it was also going on over there in Germany as well during that time. So it was kind of ironic that during the 1860s and 70s, that's when a lot of these city states and like smaller like regions of like a larger state were being just centralized basically. So that just all became a part of the narrative. And again, like that they created that Ku Klux Klan system, again to get a lot of those same natives that had their own land at that time, and own cattle, and and they own you know uh vehicles and all this stuff that they use to survive off of and create their own economy. They had to against get that from them. And they created that system, the Ku Klux Klan. And whether it was that, they just had different, white settlers that just rebelled and just made it harder for black families even after all that, in like towns like in Oscarville and up there in Gainesville, Georgia. And it's another town in Tennessee where they just started just basically killing all those people off, and it's taking all the stuff they had. So it was just
Right.
basically a whole, it was like a whole kind of like Reformation essentially that they created at that time to just get rid of that history of
Right,
what was essentially those people like the Cherokees and and all those other groups of what they call Indians we're doing down here.
right. Because and let me ask you this: so you know how, like you said, all those, because really these were a lot of American Indian villages and towns that
Yeah,
were already prominent, going back to those mounds and pyramids that they had here for hundreds and hundreds of years. And when these Europeans came here, they saw that, and a lot of them were jealous and envy. So when you hear about stuff like Rosewood and Black Wall Street and these towns being blown up and destroyed, would you say that those actually are those Mississippian villages that they were destroying? That they just may have
yeah.
called them black villages?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like during those times after the Civil War, those were the names that we know them as. But
Hmm.
yeah, like originally that's what they were. Prior to the Civil War.
Right, right. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Um, so the next thing I want to do now is pull up an image. Once again, salute to some people in the chat. I see a couple folks showing up. Salute to y'all. We appreciate you coming in the building. Got the brother Crosswire going in on some history, talking about subjects in the new book, Scorperotika, A Dark Romance, talking about America's tragic past. And we just going in right now. So we're going to present another image and get the brother Crosswire's wisdom and some things that I want to talk about real quick. So what we're doing right now is I have an image of a melanated Habsburg aristocratic member going back to Germany, which is over in Europe. And we see that it's a so-called black man, and culturally he's dressed different. It's over in Europe, but ethnically he has the same phenotype and features, just like those American Indians that we showed. So we've talked about before how the indigenous American population that was in the Southeast and had those kingdoms here, they ethnically were similar to those so-called black Europeans that came over and established the 13 colonies. So this gentleman that we see on the screen right here, not only him, but the nation of people that he was from, they look similar to him. They were all various shades of brown. And what we can see that he's holding up a coat of arms that has a dual-headed eagle on it. All right. So what I'm going to do real quick is read about the dual-headed eagle of the black nobility, Europa's original monarch, nobilities, and the founding fathers of the 13 colonies, because sometimes just in history and literature, you'll see that term black nobility, and they will correlate it with the families that chose to side with the Pope after you started having certain revolutions and changes in Italy when it came to the Catholic Church, and you had families that chose to be loyal to the Pope versus these new changes. So they'll call them the black nobility, and that's one definition of it. But the true definition of it is really the actual melanated, brown-skinned people that were ruling in Europe during the medieval period and even going further back that aren't talked about often, but they look like this person that's on the screen. And what I want to do is yeah, as I said, I'm gonna read about this dual eagle. Then I want to get the brother Crosswire's opinion on it. So first I'm gonna remove this from the screen. Then I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna do this, X out some of these windows. So we're gonna share the screen. Add this to the stage. And we're gonna look up the black dual. And the reason why we're looking this up is because we'll see these coat of arms of Europe, and they have a lot of these heraldic symbols on it of nobility and stuff. And just so we'll understand what exactly this symbol means. All right. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I do.
All right. So it says the double-headed eagle is an ancient symbol dating back to the Hittites, 2nd millennium BCE, commonly representing power, sovereignty, and dominion. It is notably associated with the Byzantine Empire, representing the union of church and state, and is gaze looking both east and west. It is used in heraldry by Russia, Serbia, Albania, and the Scottish Rite. So basically, it's just talking about one of these symbols that you see show up on a lot of European coat of arms. So what I want you to now is give us a comment on, the 13 colonies and how, some of these people coming over, not only in America, they were so-called black, but even in Europe, they were. And that history and, what you may have knew about that growing up.
As far as the black nobility over there,
Yeah.
well, I mean, of course, none is really ever ever been said, or told. But as far as like what I could kind of piece together is you know, I think over there that again, like how just like over here in those same countries, like in Spain and Great Britain and Germany and Russia, how we all hear about these czars and popes, and not popes but prime ministers, and what they in Germany, I can't remember what they call the president or whatever that term is, but yeah, I mean all those same people, like the same features they did, the same characteristics, the same stories, policies they did. I mean all that stuff, essentially, was done by somebody that was black. So that's
Right.
just go back to what we were saying about the narrative thing. It wasn't like this thing was a globalized thing. Like a lot of them probably were still alive in 1870 something or whatever, and then this narrative was out that they were white. Some of them may have
Right.
still been around. So you
Right.
know like this is just all part of the narrative. I mean, it kind of go back to my theory of what I've always thought about history is just whoever is in that position, obviously, to spread that wealth, or to have the wealth, then they're going to spread that knowledge or whatever information they want. So if they want everybody to look white, then that's what they're going to show in the history books when you go to school.
Right. You're right. And can you see the image I pulled up on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we have right now in the image, for everybody watching is we have the 5 so-called black founding fathers of the 13 colonies. So we have an image of them, and we'll just, read through each of the colonies. So when we say that the people that came from Europe were so-called black, and even when we hear about these conflicts, because, for those of us that read the book, you'll see, but these was conflicts between 2 groups of so-called black people, people coming from Europe and America. But we have King James Stewart, King Charles the First Stewart, King Charles the Second Stewart, King James the Second, and King George the Third. But I mean, it's dating back from 1607. Virginia founded by the Black Scots by King James the First. Going all the way to 1732, Georgia founded by the Black Germans and King George the Second. So ultimately it started with King James and his sons founding majority of the colonies, and then the so-called Black Germans came in through George, and they founded Georgia. So what I want to do now is I want to pull up another image. I'm gonna pull up another image, and we're gonna talk about Philip the First, Landgrave of Hesse, who, as we were saying, we just talking about some of these Germans, and this is one of them. But this is Philip the First, Landgrave of Hesse, and he was one of the so-called Black Germans. He was even behind supporting Martin Luther in the Protestant Reformation when they started to go against the Catholic Church. And later on, his descendants would create a group and an order called the Rosicrucians, because a lot of these different, international elite families of Europa, they were claiming ancestry to those biblical kings which gave them the right to rule in Jerusalem. So this is why they went, during the Holy Crusades to try to take the Holy Land back in the 1100s AD, because they were claiming ancestry from people that were there that got kicked out in 70 AD. But the gentleman on the screen, basically is like, he would have looked like Stephen Curry looks. For those of us that are familiar with basketball, the guy that plays for the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry, just a light-skinned so-called black man, basically. But this is an image of him on the screen, Philip I, Landgrave of Hesse. And what I'm going to do now is also read briefly an article, because we hear about this name Rothschild a lot. And I made a video on this before where I talked about how, these black nobility, like you said, they were ruling into the late 1800s. But I think even to this day, a lot of them still rule. It's just they may be very, very private, and they have agents that they put out into the public eye that we see, and these names that are in circulation that we may know about, but there's a true hidden hand even behind them that we don't see. So I remember just being interested.
Let me ask you this: well, why would they do that?
Well, I think one of the main reasons why, at least, is because, like you said, it seems like after the Civil War there was a reset with history, and everything that was prior to that had to be changed. And obviously something was going on that if the people today knew about it, it may continue conflict. So I think that melanated people in America and in Europe just had this perpetual warfare and fighting each other, and a lot of it is an allegory through these stories like Cain and Abel, Jacob and Esau, Isaac and Ishmael, or basically these two brothers who are biologically brothers, but they just can't seem to get along, and they're always perpetually fighting. And in order to come to some type of conclusion, an outsider usually has to come in that one of them brings in to fight on their behalf, and they're interjected into the situation. So I think that even before, when we talked about that French Revolution and how, those poor people in France, they were seeing how these nobles and aristocrats were living while they were poor. And even at this time, even some so-called black people probably were poor and didn't have resources, but they were seeing how Louis, Marie, and all those other monarchs were living in the lap of luxury, basically, while they were out there starving. And at this time also, even though I think Versailles, it was because I remember seeing this in that documentary you sent me, it wasn't near where all the other serfs lives. It was like several miles. It was several miles away, but the serfs still knew about it. And then some of the kings and queens, they probably lived in castles that were near where the people were too. So they actually saw how they were living. Like, I'm going back to this barn and got to sleep under this horse dung. And literally, I'm seeing this queen and coat and stage coach and a horse just, go by to me on this dirt road that's covered in horse manure. And, I can literally smell her perfume. I can smell the warm bread, baskets of bread coming from her carriage as she goes past. So it's like, folks start getting pissed off. And I think that these elite, they were a little bit too visible. I think they were too visible in the medieval period during like that feudalism and stuff, like whoever the chief was or something. I think they were too visible, and it was easy to know, like, okay, that's the person that you target if we trying to get some money or some wealth, because we over here poor. So all these like peasant revolutions and stuff like that, they knew who these elite were and they could target them. And I think that after that French Revolution, when they beheaded them like that, these other monarchs and elite that were in Europe, they said, okay, we're gonna have to figure out another way to rule, because if we keep putting, all this sauce in these people's face, they're gonna want to kill us too. We just saw what happened to Marie and Louis. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a strategy called the cat's paw, where we're gonna rule more in secret, but we're gonna put these puppets out in the front and have the people think that they're ruling. So when things go wrong, or when people get tired and ready to revolt, because these are international elite and secret societies, their whole goal is to extract as many resources as possible. And they don't, slow down just because the people start having a hard time. It's like right now, just because the gas prices went up and the food prices are going up, these elite don't care. Like, they're not going to decrease the prices just because they think that we're suffering. As a matter of fact, they're gonna up the ante and try to get more. And they know at some point the people are gonna wake up to that and say, you know what, we sick of this, and do something, either a Boston Tea Party or some kind of revolt. And when that happens, they're gonna have a scapegoat that you're gonna look to say that you're the reason why we're poor, or you're the reason why this, or you're the reason why that. Where really that person was just put there, but the one who's making the true decisions, they're behind closed doors somewhere, safe. So when the revolution pops off, you know, their head isn't put under the guillotine. It's the person that they put out as like the manager or as the figurehead, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that happened. But let me see real quick. Let me pull up see if it's gonna still be on here. Yeah, yesterday. Can you see this Rothschild article on the screen?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, you can see it. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm gonna do is basically what we're doing right now is just read a little bit about the patriarch named Mayer Amschel Rothschild, because once again we're going through the idea of international capital LLCs, secret societies, and these ruling international families, and how they have no loyalty to no particular nation, or any of that. Like they're gonna go wherever they feel like they can make the most money, and whatever land that they're living in, once they have drained all the resources from it, and once the people there are in a revolt and things are going bad, they're gonna pack up and go somewhere else. So in the book is dealing with the 250-year anniversary of this country, where you had, you know, individuals of power from Europe come to the Americas because, you know, Europe had turned into a shithole. It was a bunch of wars going on. It was poverty, and they needed a new way of life. They wanted religious freedom, and they heard that it was this land called America, a land of milk and honey, and they wanted to start a new life there. So that's the whole story that we get with the 13 colonies. But in order for them to do that, they came here and, you know, destroyed a lot of stuff. So we're still talking about the subject and concept of these families, but in particular right now we're still on the black nobility. And today, you know, because as we said, like, we have these people in the public and we hear these certain names, but really there are people behind the scenes pulling the strings that these people are getting power from. So we hear this name Rothschild a lot, you know, and everybody's familiar with it. But I knew that there had to be some black nobility, you know, patron that he had to give him his start. And we're going to read about who that patron is, and even look at some images of who these people were, so you can clearly see that. Because even Rothschild, you look at some of his original images, he looks just like that image of Philip the First. He looked like a light-skinned so-called black man. So even these images of Rothschild are fake that they put out. But we're going to read about this a little bit and see how Rothschild got his help from the monarchs of Germany that were dealing with that were in the black nobility. So let me see. See, I'm not going to read all of this, but we'll read enough to get to our point. All right, so we're going to start at the top. Mayer Amschel Rothschild, 1744 to 1812. Mayer Amschel Rothschild laid the foundations on which his 5 sons and their descendants will build a worldwide banking empire. The Rothschild family traced their origins back to the 15th century Frankfurt. The ancestry of the name of the Rothschild name can be traced back to 1577. Isaac Rothschild, whose name derived from the house he occupied in the Frankfurt Judengasse, or at the sign of the Red Shield. So that name Rothschild means Red Shield in Germany, dating back to 1577. So that's the main point from there. Now here we go to the second main point. It says Mayor Amschel Rothschild was born in 1744 in the Judengasse, one of 8 children of of Amschel Moses Rothschild and his wife Schnock Rothschild. Amschel's father had a business in goods trading and currency exchange. Here's the part right here. He was a personal supplier of collectible coins to the Prince of Hesse. Now, the Prince of Hesse, I want us to think back on that image of Philip I of Landgrave, that light-skinned black man, so-called black man who looked like Steph Curry. This is the family that Rothschild father was doing supplying collectible coins to. So let's continue. So it says, with the help of relatives, Meyer Amschel secured an apprenticeship under Jacob Wolf Oppenheimer at the banking firm of Simon Wolf Oppenheimer in Hanover in 1757. The grandson of Samuel Oppenheimer taught Rothschild useful knowledge in foreign trade and currency exchange before he returned to his brother's business in Frankfurt in 1763. He became a dealer in rare coins and won the patronage of Crown Prince Wilhelm of Hesse, who had also earlier patronized his father. His coin business grew to include a number of princely patrons and then expanded through the provision of financial services to Crown Prince Wilhelm. In 1769, Mayor Amschel gained the title of court agent, managing the finances of the immensely wealthy Elector of Hesse-Kassel, who became Wilhelm IX, Landgrave of Hesse-Kassel, in 1785. Business expanded rapidly following the French Revolution, when Rothschild handled payments from Britain for the hire of Hessian mercenaries. All right. So in this second part, what we getting at is that Mayor Amschel Rothschild went under apprenticeship, to learn about banking and finance, foreign trade and currency exchange. And he took this knowledge and came back to Frankfurt. And when he came back to Frankfurt, he started working for Crown Prince Wilhelm of Hesse, who's a descendant of one of those of Philip I that I showed us on that other image. And that he gained the title of the court agent, basically doing a lot of the accounting and financing and managing the wealth of the Elector of Hessen-Kassel. So now what I'm going to do, we're going to stop sharing the screen. And next, we're going to pull up an image of William of Hesse-Kassel to see how he looked. Because once again, they're not going to show these people in public. They're going to just say Rothschild, 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 where really he got his financing and support, from some black Germans behind the closed doors.
Basically, he was just counting their money, basically.
Right. He was like a manager. You know how somebody may have a stock portfolio, a real estate portfolio, but they may not have the time to actually manage and look over all the assets. So they'll hire a manager or an accountant or a financier or something like that. And they provide that service. So that's basically what Rothschild was doing for Landgrave of Hessen-Kassel. And that's an image of him on the screen right here. So this is Landgrave William or Wilhelm of Hesse-Kassel, 1787 to 1867. And he was a so-called black German who had blue eyes. So a lot of these Germans, they call them Hesse. Sometimes you may see Hessians, like during the Revolutionary War. Yeah. Because King George, he was really from Germany, but he was ruling in England. And during that revolution, he had a lot of people that was, indigenous to England and some of those colonists that revolted against him. So he had to hire people from his homeland to fight for him. Yeah. So these were black Germans, the Black Hesse, who fought for King George during the American Revolution. And this is an image of how they look right here on the screen. But these were so-called black people who had blue eyes. And but this is Landgrave William of Hesse-Kassel, the family that supported Rothschild, that gave him his initial funding. And this is how one of their descendants looked in the late 1800s. So, like you said, they still were ruling into the early 1900s. That's what a lot of that World War One and World War II was about, also to clean out the remaining, that Prussian Empire after Germany got together. Some of these nobilities and aristocrats that were black, they still were around. But in that same article that I just was reading from, it talked about how when there started being certain political conflicts that William of Hesse-Kassel had to, really hide and duck off in like some island or somewhere he went because it got hot. But Rothschild was able to stay in Europe and still was working on his behalf. So I think somewhere during that late 1800s, a lot of these black nobility, through these riots and revolts, they had to get out of there. But their agents that they had in public still were working for them. And they started to amass, of course, more money and more wealth and
Well,
start
what
being
kept
able.
them safe?
Well, they weren't from those original bloodlines. Because see, today, like when you look at Rothschild, you see these Caucasian people. And,
Right.
when you look at a lot of these different people, they Caucasian, but the ones that were ruling, they were melanated. And I think that, it's almost like when two people beefing with each other, they have to call a third party to help them solve their issue because it's like they're not mature enough to solve it on their own. So they'll call the police, for example, like two people are being in a conflict, and then they'll call the police, which is a foreign entity, to come in and help them solve their problem. And usually one of the conflicting sides calls the police. So
Exactly.
when these black nobility were fighting each other, yeah, you had black people fighting black people, but it got to a point where they started to empower some of the serfs and some of the people under the feudalism that were living in the barns. They had to pay the landlord tax. And they said, look, if you're able to go and fight in this war, I may give you a plot of land that you can live on and pay rent. And that's how a lot of these Caucasian people started to come up. But it's like today, it's like, it's like
Well,
a Caucasian.
do you think they were passing off some of their inheritance, like more than just like giving them just rent, like giving land grants and maybe giving like certain gold?
I think the black nobility was passing it off to these Caucasians. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it would make sense because some of them probably thought they were going to die in war.
Yeah, and then some of them intermarried with their families.
Yeah.
And then a lot of them they may have just ducked off and just said,
yeah, the more I think about it, like it's like, like if you know that it's it's getting ready to be an invasion of your country, and and like you said, your whole political structure is about to collapse, and you got to get out of there. Then it may have been some of them that probably were thinking like, in order for our thing to pass down and and last, like they probably trusted some of them and thought, that they would, continue to extend it and maybe even, continue intermarrying and their last name would continue. But it just got to, be what it is. And so I don't know. It may have not been this this deception type of thing. It may have been, because this, like you said, so much conflict amongst each other that they probably thought they could trust these people and probably could for that generation of time. But maybe over time it just, dwindled down.
Yeah, I mean, and then if they could have been thinking that, then it would have been foolish to think that because, and see at this time period, they had been ruling for so long that I don't think they probably perceived that Caucasian people would rise the way that they did.
Yeah.
So they thought maybe, they thought probably just giving them a couple shekels, let Rothschild do a little counting. This ain't gonna be that bad. Like they ain't thinking that in 2026 that their descendants would be living the way that they living today. Like,
but you got to think that's the ancient, American of 1500. By the time it got to be like 1800, they probably weren't seeing it quite like that.
Yeah. The stuff started changing.
Yeah.
But on the image though that we got on the screen, because like people may say, well, what you saying that the Germans were black and they had blue eyes? Like where you get that from? And they discovered this who they call Cheddar Man. So I'll read about it. You can see the image on the screen.
Yeah, I see him.
So it says Cheddar Man, Britain's oldest complete skeleton, was discovered in 1903. He lived about 10,000 years ago in the Mesolithic period. A recent facial construction of Cheddar Man has revealed a man with bright blue eyes, slightly curly hair, and dark skin. So this is a depiction of the people in ancient Britain or ancient Europe, and they called him Cheddar Man. But as we can see, this is a so-called black man, or really a brown-skinned man, dark brown skin, but he has blue eyes. So this is how the family of Hessen Castle looked. So we talk about dark-skinned people with blue eyes. These are the indigenous people of Europa who descended from Cheddar Man and the other original autochthonous people there that were brown-skinned people. So that's how we're saying that the nobility of Europa, these were so-called black people because 10,000 years ago, this is how they looked. So what's your comment on, this Cheddar Man image before, we get ready to go to our conclusion?
Just from he was what was he from? They said what year?
Well, they found him in Britain, but this basically is how the people looked in more than likely Europe 10,000 years ago. The entire Europe.
Yeah, like when I'm trying to think what image was that, because damn it, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was some image I had seen, or something they had, it was an Iceman or something they had discovered in one of those countries over there, like in Northern Europe, and the tone, the skin tone was just like the skin tone of this guy, and of course, like the hairstyle and the facial feature. That's all going to, be determined on, essentially on what region of the world you're going to be at. Because, like his facial structure don't look like somebody that would be like from, South America or something like that,
Right.
But of course the skin tone is the same. But yeah, majority of the time when I've seen like these Icemen and, like again, like, somebody they discover again from 10,000, they usually have this same skin tone. And when they, especially when they reconstruct the how the face looks, it's usually resemble this.
Yeah, same thing.
It's not nobody tan, obviously, because how would that skin tone, preserve so long,
Right. But no, yeah, I agree. Cause and that's what we do know, that all the original indigenous people of all the continents, they had various, like you said, maybe hair textures, certain kind of maybe facial features. But one thing that we see consistent is the different shades of dark brown skin. That's consistent that I see. And usually that allows me to know that these are people that's part of their original human family. Because like you said, whether it's America, Europe, Africa, or Asia, when they find the oldest people there, they all have these same, same color in their skin. So before we get ready to wrap it up, man, as I said, we just wanted to talk about, a little bit of the concepts and themes and subject matter that people are gonna come across in problems down south, which is chapter 1 of the new book Scorperotika. It's a dark romance. And in chapter 1, basically you're gonna get a look into some of the elite international families that started, colonization here in the Americas, and some of that haughty, pompous, arrogant attitude that the brother Crosswire was, talking about earlier. So before we wrap it up, man, any last words and comments you want to tell the people, things you want them to look out for until the next live stream?
Yeah, I mean, just for everybody in general, like, of course, just stay tuned for the content that you're gonna see in the Red Stiff family on, either Black Beard Mirage's channel or, on my channel in general. But as far as stuff that I'm gonna be doing, I just want y'all guys to check out my live streams that I'm gonna be doing. I'll kind of be switching it up, kind of doing it similar to how you see, the boy Black Bear Mirage doing is, talking about various topics and stuff. Of course, some of mine, is going to be a little different, where I'll be going in, different subject matter that, may not be kind of centered around information based. It's going to be more entertainment, but nevertheless, we all are still being informed of what's going on because, this is all, whether it's the internet, we still a part of, this dirty game that, we know this Jew is playing. So, the live streams, just check those out. I don't really planning on really producing too much long form content at the moment. But, I just say just check in for my live streams, and then I'll be, getting in on this with the discussions.
Right. So, yeah, so what we probably do is either maybe tomorrow or Saturday, set up another live stream, get the brother Crosswire to come on, share some Jews and wisdom information that he knows, go into chapter 2 and just keep this thing going. And before I wrap up, also, you all probably see on the banner on the screen, just some instructions on you. If you want to purchase the book, you could just email me at redstickmirage7@gmail.com. That's redstickmirage7@gmail.com. It's on the screen, but you're just going to email me, your name, your mailing information. And once I have it, I can send you the book. The book is going to be $30. And we do business through the Cash App. So once I have your confirmation through the email, I just have you send me the $30 to the Cash App, and then I'll ship the book out and let you know when you can expect to receive it. And then we're gonna just keep on turning up, keep handling business, and keep on doing what we're doing. But yeah, we're just gonna have more of these open-ended discussions on these live streams, just laid back. And I'll figure out how to get my audio right with these videos so we can show some clips. But we'll get it right. It's just the first time using this program. But it was a good live stream. We appreciate it, brother, coming on. And everybody stay down and come up. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. And until next time, we out.
Y'all later.